Dear content creator, yes, I know it's tax season and it can be a little bit stressful, but it doesn't have to be scary, especially when you are prepared and overall just understand how taxes in Canada work. In this episode, I'm going to be breaking it all down for you so you can have more peace of mind and have a stress free tax season. So, let's dive in. What up, beautiful people? Welcome back to another episode of Dear Content Creator. I am your lovely host, Kairis Maggie. Thank you all for tuning in to another episode. And yes, y'all, tax season is upon us. I know. It is that scary time of the year. Y'all know that song that's going around on TikTok? The one that's like, do you know you have 30 minutes? Yes, that is literally how it's like right now. And I know some of you are probably like, it's too stressful. I can't bother with it. You're probably even thinking about not even filing this year and worrying about it another year. But I'm telling you, there are ways for you to avoid that feeling. And it literally comes mostly from just being prepared and overall just understanding how taxes work. So, very quickly, we are going to be talking about the different business structures in Canada so that you can select the one that's best for you, how to track your income and your expenses, plus what you can actually write off, when and why you should register for GST HST, and also learning about the other taxes that you might not really think about sometimes, talking about income tax and CPP, which is the Canadian or Canada Pension Plan. And we're going to wrap this up talking about DIY or should I hire an accountant? Let us get right into it, y'all. We're not even going to be wasting no time on the episode here. I really want this episode to be very clear that at the end of it, you feel prepared, you know exactly what to do, and you can also use it as a reference point to come back to. So I'm going to try my best not to go on a tangent too much. I have my little notes right here in front of me to help me out and keep me on track. But if there is any insights from this episode that you find helpful, please feel free to share the love, share it with other creators who might need to hear it, because I tailored this episode specifically for y'all, because I love y'all so much, you know? And I want to say thank you to some of you also submitted questions for this particular topic. If there are any other questions that you have after this one, maybe I can bring on a professional to talk more about your more specific questions. Send me an email to dearcontentcreator@gmail.com. So, the different business structures in Canada. Yes. So I know when it comes on to our US counterpart, a thing that we have all heard about, we always hearing about LLC. And I remember when I just moved here and I was thinking about registering my business, I'm like, what the heck is a LLC? And when I actually just learned to understand what is relevant to me in the country I'm in, it just made everything super easy. So we do not have LLCs in Canada. The two main business structures we have are sole proprietorship and incorporation. Now, the reason I have to make sure I say this is because I know a lot of people who actually registered business and they put LLC at the end of it. That is a no-no. Or they put Inc. when they are a sole proprietorship and are not incorporated. So we're actually going to break down the difference between the two, some pros and cons, so you have an idea of which one might be beneficial to you if you are not yet registered, or if you're already registered, maybe it's time for an upgrade to a different one. So many content creators, when they're starting off, they start off with sole proprietorship. It's the simplest one to set up, also cheaper. And also, when you are just starting out as a creator, you're not initially making money straight out the gate. So this one makes sense to be the one to start out with. There are some benefits, however, to starting out as incorporated, and I will go through some of the pros and cons right now. So as I mentioned already, with sole proprietorship, it's easier to set up and also cheaper. I live in Ontario, so I remember when I set up my first business as a sole proprietorship, I think I paid about 60 or 80 Canadian dollars. But yeah, compared to how much you have to pay for incorporation, it is way cheaper and less complicated, less paperwork to deal with as well. The second thing is that you don't have to file a separate business tax return for this business structure. However, this is where the cons kind of come in. So because the business is you and you are the business, so There's no separating of the business entity from yourself based on this specific structure. Your business income is your personal income. And so if you're someone who, for example, works a 9 to 5, that income that you're making from your 9 to 5 needs to be combined with whatever you make from your content creation stuff to give a full picture of what you actually made in the year. And that is what you're going to be taxed on. And this is where the idea of incorporating your business comes into play for many creators, especially when they're starting to really grow and scale their business. And another con is because you're the business and the business is you, you are liable. So if anyone is going to come for you, like if they want to sue you or anything like that, there's no differentiating between you and the business. So they can actually come for your personal assets. Also liability in regards of like just business debt, like overall, that falls on you. Okay. So that is sole proprietorship. Moving on to incorporation. Now, this is great for those who are, scaling their business and also are looking for more tax benefits that it pretty much gives. So for this business structure, as opposed to sole proprietorship, it is a separate legal entity from yourself. And so this is what a lot of people would consider like starting out with, because it just protects them straight out the gate from the very beginning, especially if they probably have a more risk-based type of business. So if you're a creator that probably you do finance related content, you're more likely to want to start out incorporated versus sole proprietorship, just because it is a more, I would say, risky business compared to other like types of businesses out there, I guess, like creator business at that. You can also take advantage of corporate tax rates. They are a bit lower than the ones that you pay for your personal tax rate. And also you can pay yourself a salary or dividend. So yeah, that helps you with some potential tax savings right there. Now, when it comes on to the cons, of course, it is more complicated to set up. It is also more expensive. When I say more complicated, I mean there's just so much more paperwork and things that you have to follow every year. So in addition to filing your taxes, you have to do an annual like filing as well. And there are certain things you have to do, like not bookkeeping, like a minute book, keeping track of a minute book. If you have stakeholders, like this is where the complexity of the business model just gets, it's in the word I said, more complex. So yeah, these are the difference between the two. I want to, however, tell you all about a bonus resource that you can consider if you haven't yet registered your business and you're looking for a resource. Now, when I started out, I did register my business through my Providence like website. I honestly wished at the time I had known about Owner, which is a platform, a Canadian platform that makes the process of registering your business and incorporating super smooth and simple. And that is what I use. I love the fact that they also not only gave me a platform to easily register and have my documents in one place and all of that, but also they also gave me other perks, like I could get discount on insurance or certain, business softwares and subscriptions that I might need to run my business. I love the fact that I also was able to open up a business account with RBC, which is a bank they have a partnership with. And there was like a seed and fund amount that you got when you opened up your bank account. So these were just a few of the things that I love. Now, great news for you all. Owner is celebrating the fact that they have registered over 200,000 businesses in Canada. And as a thank you, they are giving a 20% off for anyone who needs to register their business, either sole proprietorship or incorporation. And you get this deal up until, or before I should say, May 1st, 2025. Now, the code that you should use at checkout is owner 200K. That's OWNR 200K. I'm going to put all the information in the description box. And if you know anyone who might find this useful, go ahead and tell them about it. Share the love, people. Share this episode with them. Now that we've talked about the different business structures in Canada, how you can select the right one for you, let's talk about one of the biggest pain points for a lot of us: keeping track of our income and or expenses. This is a huge problem that many of us have. And so let's talk about how you can actively and proactively track your income and your expenses. Now, the reason I talked about ensuring that you register your business, knowing the right business structure, all of that is because in order for you to be able to register a business bank account, which I highly recommend you have, the very first tip that I give is that you ensure that you separate your personal from your business, like whether it comes on to income or expenses. So once you have a business registered, you're able to open up an account for your business that enables you to have a checking account, and you can also get a credit card, that you can use towards your expenses. This helps to simplify for you what is going in and out of your business. It's not mixed up with your personal stuff, and it just allows you to practice proper bookkeeping practices as a whole and simplify it at the same time. Secondly, ensure that you're saving your receipts, y'all. Like, you never know when you could possibly be audited and you need to show receipts for what is coming into the business. So whether it's an invoice that like you sent to someone, like make sure you have those on hand, of course, but also when you pay for things, make sure you're keeping track of those expenses and having records of your receipts. So if you have an iPhone, there is a way for you to scan documents on your iPhone. I personally love to use the Adobe Scan app. And it just allows me that whenever, especially if I buy something in person and I get a paper copy of the receipt, because there's no option for me to like email it to myself or something, I'll quickly take a picture, or scan it, I should say, so that I have it there ready to go and upload to all of my organized files. So I have my receipts organized according to the year, and depending on if it's a reoccurring like subscription that I have, I will put it in a specific folder as well for that specific vendor. So this just allows me that everything is in the right places when I'm also referring back to anything that I like paid for. The receipt is there to back up what that payment was for. And you never know when you will be audited. So having your receipts will help for that, because they do ask for the receipts to basically audit you. Now, since you're a serious business owner, okay, we want to make sure that we're invoicing our clients or customers. And I know that Canva has a lot of cute looking templates for this, but trust me, if you want to automate the process, also allow you to get payments in one place, all of those things, you want to use an invoicing software. Something like Wave, which is one of my favorite tools to use for my business. And this brings us into our Things I'm Loving Right Now segment. Yeah, so Wave is a Canadian company. They are all about making the process simple and easy for small business owners and solopreneurs. So if you're someone who is looking for a software to help to make easier for you to create beautiful and customized branded invoices, also for you to collect payments in one place, and also just overall make accounting easy. You don't need to be an accountant to use this. They made this specifically keeping business owners, small business owners in mind. And so it's very user friendly, and why I personally recommend it. I've been using it for about 5 years now, and I don't see anything else that can really compare, especially because it has so many amazing features that it offers for free. So at least that is like one particular expense that as a business owner just starting out, you won't have to worry about straight out the gate. There are other tools out there, of course, but this is the one that I personally love to recommend and use for the simplicity of it and the ease and free features that it gives, just enough to get the job done. But I do want to plug a second resource, because since we are talking about the importance of tracking your income and expenses, we need to track this somewhere, right? I love me a good spreadsheet. I'm a spreadsheet girly. I don't like to make them all the time, but when I have to use them, I love to use them. And the other day, I actually won a business bookkeeping tracker in a giveaway. So it was a combined giveaway that some finance creators here in Canada were doing. Amazing resources were given, and I won the business bookkeeping tracker by content creator Danny Nelson. I have been loving it. It's not just cute looking, but it just has everything that I need. I was already tracking my business expenses and income on a tracker that I use, something very basic that I made. But with this, it's just It has a lot more things on it that I'm loving. And if you are someone who is looking for a tool to get you started in tracking your expenses properly and your income, I am going to put in the show notes and description box all of the resources, the link for the specific tool as well for you. So go ahead, check out, and just overall support a fellow Canadian content creator while you're at it. So you know how we hear that saying, you gotta spend money to make money? That is facts. But what if for all the spending that you do in your business to make the business run and move, you could actually write off some of that expenses? This is where the conversation of tax deductible business expenses come into play and why it is important for you to track it. If you're not tracking it, you won't know what you're actually spending on to know what is actually something that is known as a tax write-off. Now, I'm going to give some quick examples, but again, the show notes and the description box is going to have links for anything I'm mentioning. So I'm going to put a reference link to something that is available on the CRA website that gives like a list for you to know exactly what are some of the things considered. So very quickly, as a content creator, we're mostly using tech-related gadgets. So computer, microphone, camera, light, all of these things I mentioned, I'm currently using myself on the daily basis, basically. And I'm sure you can also relate. So these are some of the things that would be considered tax deductible for me. Another thing, software and subscriptions. I'm sure that some of you can relate to the fact that most of your money probably goes towards this, like as a reoccurring bill. So if you're someone who probably use like Canva, maybe you use CapCut or Adobe for video editing. I use Descript specifically for my podcast. I also use a subscription for clipping up my videos automatically to help me with clips I can use for social media promotions, especially my podcast. I use Epidemic Sound, for, copyright free music that I can use without having to worry about getting a copyright strike when I use it on my vlogs or videos that I do. This is just a list of some of the subscriptions that I have. I might just do a video exposing how much I spend in this business of mine, because it does add up when you're trying to be creative and all of that and want to be effective and efficient. You want to use tools that can help you to get there. And just a couple more I'll mention: business travel and meals. So if you're a creator who maybe you're a travel creator, that would be considered part of it. But again, make sure you speak to an accountant because they can probably advise you a bit more on how it works. I don't know, like if there's a certain percentage that they consider that you can use as write-off, because I know they can be very specific for some things. So for example, for food, when it comes down to meals, it's only 50% that is considered deductible, not the entire food bill. So something to keep in mind when it comes on to home office expenses. So maybe you work at home as well, or you have a specific area in your house that you use as like your office space for work. That can be something that's written off, but this is also dependent on square footage of your actual like house or apartment, and then whatever the square footage of that space is, that is how you can use like whatever that percentage is towards what you will actually write off as part of what's considered rent. So these are just a couple of things. There are other things, of course, like training. Maybe there's memberships that you sign up for. Maybe there are courses that you do. Whatever it is that you spend basically to make your business be better and make yourself be better, these things would be considered. That is it for the expenses. Let us now move on to talking about, very quickly, income tax and the Canada Pension Plan. This is a topic that very recently was very confusing to me, especially the Canada Pension Plan and how content creators would be responsible for paying this, especially if you're full-time. So I already made an episode about it. I am a content creator who also has a 9-to-5, but it was important for me to know that regardless of if I work a 9-to-5 or not, I could still be like responsible for paying towards my Canadian pension plan. So this is a breakdown of pretty much how it works. So if you are a content creator who does this full time, unlike a 9-to-5, you have to remember that no taxes are automatically taken away from your business, right? Or your income that you make. So that's where tax season comes in, where based on the information you provide, then the CRA will tell you how much you actually owe. And so for someone who is a full-time content creator, so you're self-employed, you must pay income tax, both federal and provincial, and also the Canada Pension Plan. And this is 11.9% of your net self-employment income. And I just want to make sure that I give an example of if you're someone who works a full-time job and you make content creation like income as well, because there can be like various differences that you need to be aware of. So very quickly, I don't think I mentioned it, but what is the Canada Pension Plan? Basically, it's money that you and or your employer contributes right now, so that later on you have money towards your retirement. So it's like a piggy bank fund that's being made for you. Here's a quick scenario. You have a 9 to 5 and you make creator income. So your 9 to 5 job, your employer will automatically take the CPP from your paycheck. They will also match what you contribute. So you pay 5.95%, your employer pays the next 5.95%. That's where we get that 11.9 from. And they send it directly to the government for you. So you don't have to do anything. This is done automatically for you. Now, in this case, even though your employer has already paid it for you, there might be a case where they maybe didn't max it out, and that's where the government might require you to pay the rest of it from your creator income, so your additional income that you have. Because as we already know, when it comes on to the situation of you being a full-time content creator, because you are your boss, there's no employer paying any of the CPP money on your behalf. You have to pay both what your boss would have paid or employer and yourself. So that's where that total 11.9% comes in, and it is calculated on your net income. So how does the CRA track it, you might be wondering? Well, when you file your taxes, you report both your T4, which is something that you get from your employer, and you also provide how much you make from your creator income. And then the CRA will look at your total income and they pretty much figure out how much more CPP you will owe, if any. So that's the gist of how that pretty much works. So just some quick important updates. There's a CPP max limit each year. So each year it changes. Once you hit that limit from your job and your side hustle combined, you won't owe any more CPP. But if your 9 to 5 doesn't max it out, the rest may be taken from your creator income. So in this case, how can you prepare yourself overall when it comes on to just taxes as a whole? Make sure you set aside 25 to 30% of your income, so that it might be going towards taxes that you might owe or CPP. And the reason you have to do this is because naturally you just won't know how much you might owe. You might owe, you might not owe, depending on if you know how to find ways to lower how much you might have to pay in taxes. That is something you will have to figure out with an accountant, of course. But yeah, in a nutshell, this is the best advice that you will hear from anyone. They always tell you just have up to 30% that you save from your income that you can pay towards your taxes if needed. And the great news is that if you're not sure how much you've paid into CPP through your job already, a tax professional or a tax software can calculate what is left. But I believe that once you get your T4, this information will also be on it to tell you how much was paid overall for that entire year. All right, now let us move on to talking about how you go about registering for GST, HST, and when do you actually need to register. This is another topic that was very confusing for me to understand in the beginning, but once you understand it, you pretty much realize that it was so simple. It's just a matter of understanding what a lot of these things mean and how it applies to your situation. So in a nutshell, if you make $30,000 or more in gross revenue over 4 consecutive calendar quarters, you must register and charge GST, HST. So you're charging this to customers or clients that you have. So one more time, if you make $30,000 or more in gross revenue over 4 consecutive calendar quarters, you must register and charge GST, HST. What if you make less than 30K though? Well, you would be considered a small supplier and you're not required to register for it, but you can register voluntarily. And there are some pros to doing this. And very quickly, here are the reasons why some people who have not yet made 30K or more might decide to register. Well, first things first, because you have to be keeping track of when you reach that 30,000 threshold, because once you reach it, you have to register for GST, HST. If you don't want to go through that, you can from the beginning just register for it and you're ensuring that you are charging the GST and HST to your customers. It also is beneficial because you can claim back GST and HST that you paid on business expenses. So if you are like basically when you just start out, you're paying a lot, you're spending more probably than what is coming in. And so this would be a great benefit for you to actually get back some of that sales tax that you were paying to vendors or subscriptions or services, whatever the case might be. So that's another reason why you would want to. And lastly, it also just makes you look more legit and professional to brands and clients. And since as a content creator, a lot of your clients might be brands that you're working with, there is, a little tip for you right there. I'm not sure of the cons for this, to be honest, in terms of registering voluntarily. Maybe that's something y'all can look up, but I just wanted to talk about why it's advantageous for you to apply for it, even if you don't reach that 30,000 threshold. So again, not business advice, not professional advice or business advice or finance advice. I'm just communicating information that you can find on your own, but trying to simplify it as much as possible. So you're probably wondering, okay, well, how does this actually work? So once you've registered, you charge GST, HST based on your client's location, not yours. So if your client is in Alberta and you are in Ontario, you need to be charging what the amount is in Alberta, which I believe is 5%. In Ontario, it's 13%. So keep in mind that, again, you're charging the GST, HST based on the client's location, not yours. You collect the tax and then you remit it to the CRA. So basically, that money that you're collecting in GST, HST, it's not your money. Make sure that you're practicing proper bookkeeping. We're going back to the importance of having a tracker, because that will allow you to also just have an area where you're putting and calculating GST, HST that you also collect, so that at the end of the year or quarter, however your your payment cycle is, you're paying that back to the government. For me, I believe my payment cycle is annually. So at the end of the year, I will pay that GST, HST to the government that I have been keeping track of based on what I charge my clients throughout the year. So hope that is clear, y'all. Those some of want to know, all right? That's not your money. It's the government money. All right? All right. And lastly, well, how do you register? You can register online through your CRA business account, or you could talk to a CRA representative over the phone. They also have the option for you to do it by mail-in, but honestly, y'all, we're living in a time of technology evolving. You're better off doing it online or by getting a representative to guide you through the process on the phone. So that's what I recommend. So once you register, you're going to receive your GST HST number, which you want to ensure that you have on all the invoices that you're sending out to clients or customers. Okay, so that is it in a nutshell for everything that has to do with tax season that you need to be aware of to keep yourself aware and prepared. And just overall, once you understand how the tax system works, it makes it so much easier. But there are ways that you can also lower the amount that you might have to pay for taxes, or reduce, maybe get back some of the money that you worked so hard to make in the first place, because we do get taxed a lot, y'all. I saw someone post on Threads the other day, y'all out here saying that content creation isn't a real job. Can y'all tell the IRS? And I'm gonna say the Canadian version of that. Like, for those of y'all who's saying content creation is not a real job, why am I paying anything then when it comes down to taxes if it's not a real job. Clearly, CRA never get the memo, but let me not play with the CRA. I filed my taxes and I pay what is owed, okay? It might hurt, but we just move and do what we gotta do. So we're gonna wrap up this episode talking about whether you should hire an accountant or DIY. And in a nutshell, y'all, this is going to be a personal preference. This is up to you. Do what works for you. I know that I don't have the patience to be doing my taxes on my own, figuring out how I can find ways to lower my tax payments or whatever the case might be. So I work with a professional, but I know creators who do their taxes on their own. They might use platforms like Simple Tax, which I just found out about. So shout out to them for having that available. You also can do it yourself on H&R Block. So those are just some resources if you want to do it on your own. However, if you're like me and you want to put the responsibility in the hands of a reliable professional, then you might want to consider hiring an accountant. And here are some of the things that accountants can help you with. Well, they might be able to find deductibles that you might miss. So I don't know if some of you might be aware of this, but there might be credits that you have that could be, for example, applied to when your taxes are being filed, that can help to decrease maybe how much you have to pay. And some of this can be in the form of, what's in your RRSP and different things like that. That's a whole different topic that I'm not even going to go into. There are a lot of finance creators who talk about this topic so much, so I highly recommend that you check them out and how they really break down what these different type of benefits that we have out there for helping with our taxes, or just speak to your accountant, to be honest. They can also help you decide between if you want to do sole proprietorship or incorporation business structure based on how much money you are making, because they are able to see your figures. They can advise on that, and it just helps you to save more money. Even though it will cost more to file your taxes if you're incorporated, the benefits for your actual taxes are better from what I've heard compared to like the personal income tax. And lastly, they can help to advise on the GST HST registration in case you have any other questions regarding that. That is everything. So what I'm going to leave with y'all is a very quick checklist. So this is the final tax season checklist for content creators. So here we go. Una ready? All right. So first things first, we want to make sure we register our business and select the best business structure for us, whether sole proprietorship or incorporation. Next, you want to separate your business and personal finances by getting a business bank account and credit card. Track all your income and your expenses. You can use a software for this, or if you're a spreadsheet girly like me, we can use a simple old spreadsheet, or you can use the resource that I plugged earlier. You want to save 25 to 30% for taxes to avoid any surprise bills, because we never know when we might get a little surprise here and there. By knowing your expenses, you can know your deductions. So we already talked about that, aka your write-offs, yeah? Consider quarterly tax payments, especially if you owe more than $3,000. Yeah, if you owe more than $3,000, that's a steep amount to pay back. But yeah, quarterly tax payments will definitely help with this. And lastly, consult with an accountant if you have any questions related to your business. Thank you all for listening to another episode. I know this one was probably a bit of a heavier topic, but I hope that you found it informative. And if you do, please share this podcast episode with a friend who might need it. I wanted to do my best to share some of the knowledge that I have been able to accumulate over the years of having to navigate this space as a creator, while also making sure that I am legally running my business and paying my dues and filing and whatever the case might be, like just doing things properly. And I want to help you to do things properly as well for the business that you are building. Now, there are a lot of resources out there in the form of other creators who might do content specifically around this topic. So look for those information if you have any other questions. Also, CRA has a lot of resources, so much. You can also speak to one of their representatives. They might not be able to give you specific guided answers because they're not supposed to be giving like business advice, but they can point you in the right direction with the resources about the specific questions you might have. So if you have a specific question about GST, HST, they will have a specific link for that they can send you. If it's about CPP, same thing. Like, there are a lot of resources that you can definitely get just from CRA, but whenever in doubt, just consider also speaking to a professional in the form of an accountant who can do a better job of giving you advice for your business situation. If you enjoyed this episode, please give me a 5-star review. Subscribe if you haven't already, y'all. Like, subscribe on your favorite podcast streaming platform so that you never miss out on when I upload a new episode. If you're watching here on YouTube, I would love to chat with y'all. How do you feel about tax season? Is it something that stresses you out? And do you feel that you have a little bit more clarity after listening to this episode? And don't forget, y'all, we are now accepting questions. So don't forget that you can send your questions to dearcontentcreator@gmail.com. Thank y'all for listening, and I'll see y'all in another episode. Bye.